There's so many thoughts that come to mind when I think about the impact of racism and prejudice on women of color, people of color. And the first thought that comes to mind is that, you know, through racism and prejudice, you're almost taught that you're not okay as you are, right? There's like this lack of value, you know, placed on people of color. So when we're having this discussion about, you know, mothers raising children, and they may have experienced this chronic racism and prejudice, of course, you know, if they don't recognize that impact, it's going to be, you know, projected onto their children in some way, unintentionally. You don't intentionally project the impact of the racism, but feeling like, you know, there is no value there, right? Or that you're not okay as you are, you're not safe, right? What does it cause? It causes anxiety. It causes feelings of insecurity. I think Natalie brought up mistrust, and that is huge, right? So you parent in that way at times, right? So this doesn't speak to everyone, but just in general, you know, you have that always being on alert, right? So teaching your children to survive versus just to be who you are, and just live life and do, you know, fulfill the purpose, you know, of your life. So while you do educate your children in that way, you also teach them how to survive, right? So I won't go too deep into it, but if you think of the concept of transgenerational trauma, that's exactly it, right? So you teach them those behaviors to survive. And again, it's kind of parenting out of fear. It's parenting out of anxiety, right? Because you want to protect your children from what you've experienced and from what your parents experience and grandparents, you know, have experienced. So it not only, racism and prejudice not only impacts the parent, you know, it impacts the way that they raise their children, how they interact with their children. Right. So, you know, and it can affect you emotionally, physically, spiritually, you know, it affects you in so many different aspects of your life. Again, you know, sometimes that even reduces that, I don't know, like that emotional space that you need to adequately care for your children at times. And, you know, and that's also important to, you know, to recognize. So that's, those are my thoughts regarding, you know, how racism and prejudice can impact mothers raising children. And as a mother raising two boys, I can definitely identify with some of that as well. And ways to provide support. I mean, honestly, I think just continuing to become more educated, become more open, you know, increasing your own awareness of your own biases, meeting people where they are, you know, not only learning, but practicing cultural humility. You know, I think that is important. You know, I think that's one of the first steps to having the ability to provide support, right? So, you know, and then providing the information and the resources, and creating more opportunities for women of color to become okay with just being vulnerable, and not feeling less than or judged, right? So if you're meeting them where they are and they can truly feel that there's a sense of trust there, and that they can, you know, express, you know, what they're feeling, or feel comfortable with giving their perspective, or identify some of these signs and symptoms, right? Because there's almost this expectation when you're taught to survive that it's also not okay to express how you're feeling, right? Or again, to be vulnerable. So So again, creating more opportunities for that, creating more of a, a space for that, can be a way to provide